Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Carmine's Arena, a cultural gourmet of information, if you will, a feast for your mind and soul. And now, without further delay, the man, the myth, the maestro, Carmine Arena.
Greetings, and welcome once again to Carmine's Arena, site of contest and conflict, venue for and of resolution. Resolution in terms of focus, remedy, and commitment, both yours and mine, to the preservation, the propagation, and indeed the celebration of Western civilization. All too many I've encountered misunderstand to their infinite detriment the meaning of freedom, a theme we here visit again in refrain. They mistake freedom as that which comes without limits. Under such conditions, freedom becomes anarchy, which invariably solves the growing problem with tyranny, a cruel order, fast imposed, with edicts grandiose. Soon after, to make society otiose and or morose, at best metamorphose to comatose. Freedom sans limits fast reminds one of orgies. Dionysian surrender to a medley and melee of limbs entwined, to combine monkey shine and greedy swine, all mistaken for freedom, drunk on loss of identity and fidelity to self and sanity. Spontaneity made uniformity amid a prolixity of perversities. A Studio 54 crush of nobodies and celebrities who longed for that aforementioned loss of identities as nightclub frivolity. What seems like endless bliss soon goes amiss, and all begin to experience the permanent hiss of the abyss as they go about their bitterness unto HIV and syphilitic formlessness. Such would be my guess. I've noticed a sad fact before on this program, that freedom is silently feared. Most desire to be told what to do, like the hardcore left. Big government, big interference in individual lives gives that mob a sense of peace and contentment, if not willful containment or stale entertainment. The socialist order never finds success, just failure by way of big government excess. Yet stubbornly, the error is repeated with the same resulting tumult. 'Tis best to remember that capitalism shares the wealth, whereas socialism shares the misery born of un-American heresies. Is capitalism perfect? No more than those who practice it. Perfection being the reality of grand expectations gone inflationary. In short, it is to be remembered, indelibly remembered, that freedom minus limits is no longer to be spelled any other way but with the suffix dumb, as in D-U-M-B. And now silent B, finding its voice only in liberty, which I like to think is freedom absent license. That is, the license to censor another's opposing opinion, the license to tell half-truths which damage the whole truth, the license to engage in cynicism steeped and stored in sophism, its inflation of meaning, the hot air of most particularly blatherskite politicians who talk at trite length and make about as much sense as those who vote for them in tandem. There have been moments when, even as a proud American, I could wish for a philosopher king with full powers, but a limited term, and to exercise same sans salary. Yes, freedom is a vexing concept that frequently tickles the wrong places of ideation, the type of thinking which forgets that freedom isn't free. What's freedom, say, for a teenager is perceived as license to their parents. Best if brats and autocrats sit down for a serious chat thereat. 'Twill make a big difference to a shared habitat. For emphasis, allow me to reiterate that so-called freedom sans restrictions is anarchy. Anarchists fairly shortly begin to long for strict order, since they become tarnished targets themselves, targets of disorder. Poor health, for example, is disorder which longs for sound body alone, found in mindful moderations. Likewise, for any and all immediate pursuits, alcohol abuse and drug misuse interfuse until one is of no use, reduced to trash and refuse. What appeared to be the pinnacle of freedom turns out to be a self-imposed opioid prison sentence that indulges merely in screed and the splashing about in one's own dirty puddle to only fully emerge, sans deterge, a stinkweed. Permit me to purify all my chatter with the thoughts of a singular great lady, Emily Dickinson, a poet of the highest order, possessing a startling originality to capture the concept of freedom. Listen, won't you, as I now quote the Belle of Amherst. A transport one cannot contain may yet a transport be. A diagram of rapture, a sixpence at a show, with holy ghosts in cages, the universe would go. Ah, my true listeners, those few lines could easily absorb seminars to explore 80 and evermore, for each reading shall underscore what was earlier ignored heretofore, then refreshed with Emily restored. That God granted some of his chosen creatures the gift of poetic voice becomes our counterpoise to idle noise. Its music impeaches what is not choice, leaving an invoice we pay with rejoice, from the Iliad's Homer to poetry's newcomers, whose fame we shall hoist on high via Vox Populi, our poetical choir of Titanic alumni. No, to be misinterpreted and therefore misunderstood, let me not leave freedom with a bad reputation. Attend to this personal experience I here impart. I was at the 38th parallel in South Korea, back when I was in the military. There was an uneasy truce, and I found myself witnessing an open truckload of seated and manacled North Korean prisoners staring at those of us assembled with unsparing hatred, each a carbon copy of one the other in unremitting hostility, caught in their own bondage of tyranny, alive up to this minute. One of said prisoners fixated on me personally with a toxic grin, making the Korean conflict at once personal, at once telepathic unto endemic. I thought to smile back with liberty's cheeky contempt, but silently shook my head to prove from hatred I was exempt. That response wished me dead. Ergo, for self-righteous peacemakers, wherever you sulk, bulk up on reality in its all bald probity, in full rotundity and profundity, thus leading to a few wartime fatalities. Bulk up on your unstuck endowments, which are self-awareness, conscience, independent will, and creative imagination. They shall in turn produce real freedom come liberty. They'll produce justice, honor, duty, mercy, and providential hope. Inasmuch as liberty is a neighboring autonomy, personal sovereignty, culture's immune system, an immune system that multiply our standbys to supply an all-seeing eye. Before I pull away, I must find the courage to discourse upon those who champion tyranny, the perpetual vice of left-wing, dingling intellectuals. From H.G. Wells and Lenin, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Mao, Castro, Sartre, Stalin, to Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and recently Hugo Chavez. Tyrants capture the leftist intellectual prattling imagination, so that a new word was coined for this comradeship, and that is the combing, of left and intellectual to left textuals. The latter delude themselves into the belief that tyranny helps the many rather than the few. In actuality, only the tyrant and yes-men sycophants gain beyond tame nor shame. Excuse me, my allergy. Hugo Chavez, mentioned last, was certainly not least of tunnel-visioned failures. His motherland, Venezuela, can't be cited enough for its contemporary ongoing mischief of tyrannical governance, bequeathed by Chavez to the present me, myself, and I says. In fact, my wife and I know a Venezuelan lady who from America regularly sends money to her homeland so that family members can purchase food on the black market. An ancient historic spin cycle that keeps realists from famine and its socialist breadlines. Yet, tyranny's followers are disinclined to streamline thought, however asinine the headline. The contrarian nature of man is a condition that I forever find both fustian and pedestrian at the very same time. As an artist, I more likely shall continue to favor instead la vie bohème as against tyranny's Brobdingnagians, who I'd prefer to whittle down to Lilliputians. As my type of bohemian, in brief, you're more than likely to feel the rain, whilst others just get wet. I'm here far from suggesting you be arty, but artistic, creatively, and substantively, belonging to that party which believes government should be our friendly armchair in which we sip rare vintage, never than ordinaire. This practice keeps one from evolving doctrinaire, anywhere between here and Voltaire. Yes, indeed, continue unabated to ponder freedom and or liberty and our rights to its analytics, dynamics, and our metaphysics. Voltaire solitaire shall e'er be a thermodynamic topic. I invite you to rollick, as might a balletic Fred-Astaire. Now, since I find there is still time, I'm going to take the freedom to cover some odds and ends, particularly ends. My bullet points accumulated over time because I was signaled I had run out of time to finish what I hoped to convey. I did so with an off-camera oy vey. I'm now going to alleviate my frustration and your deficit by accounting for these assets over the course of future episodes as I commence forthwith with the program I entitled Salvos. Salvos being the linguistically valorous, not vulgar ever, retorts to an opponent, crossing verbal swords with cutting-edge skill and timing. A master of the driest retorts was none other than President Calvin Coolidge. Silent Cal, as he was justly and pointedly described by all who knew him or knew about him. Such a one was obviously Mrs. Grace Coolidge, the president's wife. The president and Mrs. Coolidge were being shown separately one day around an experimental farm. When Mrs. Coolidge came to the chicken yard, she noticed that a rooster was mating very frequently. She asked the attendant how often that happened and was told dozens of times a day. Tell that to the president when he comes by. Upon being told, the president asked, "Same hen every time?" The reply was, "Oh no, Mr. President, a different hen each time." The president responded, "Tell that to Mrs. Coolidge." And we think we're sophisticated. Yes, keep the salvos on tap. You never know when their spirit will be apt. And as we just encored, there's no better way to recap. Presently, I'm going to recapture what I, on another broadcast of Carmine's Arena, had to surrender to time as it fleets while yours truly bleats. We now are to be re-engaged by England's poet laureate, Rudyard Kipling, who in this poem entitled If, explores what it takes to be a man, not just a mere male to curtail or thereafter bewail in travail. To be a man takes an understanding of freedom. That understanding is a good man's essence. He knows that freedom has consequences that impact one's persona and one's collateral extras. The poem I refer to is written in iambic pentameter as if in obedience to conscience in place of convenience. Now I invite you to attend thought and its import as we cavort with a poet laureate in divine transport, and I quote, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Every father should make it his business to read that Kipling poem to his son, referencing it when his offspring slips and errors, perhaps strips for betters. In the 1995 BBC opinion poll, the poem If was voted the United Kingdom's favorite poem. During his lifetime, even Kipling started to resent the poem's popularity, saying it had been anthologized to weariness, thus taking his own advice in the first stanza. Being hated, don't give way to hate, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. A true Celtic suspicious of popularity. We've spoken of how more comforting it is to be badly misunderstood. If Christ were understood, he would have been ignored. Till next, we each greet. Hold the dum-de-dum connected to freedom, made dumb and numb in full sum. Remember, freedom, like liberty, should aim to achieve independence from one's stupidity, particularly the obvious variety, the piercings, the facial tattoos, its legions of hullabaloo come voodoo, and the boohoo of split earlobes probed with a discolored black, the size of crackerjacks or the soul of a rat. Yes, popularity is a vulgarity linked to peculiarity made jobless with regularity. Until next time, my friends, ciao and farewell.
If you have any comments or other remarks, and that I perhaps could even read on some of these broadcasts, please do not hesitate to write to me, Carmine Arena, P.O. Box 1029, Larchmont, New York 10538.